Here are 8 Deadlock tips that will hopefully help you improve. Some of these you may or may not know. Subscribe if you're new and let's get started. Now the first tip I want to talk about is last hitting, denying or even capturing souls when you kill minions in lane. Now the mechanic of denying souls doesn't just stop at the beginning of the game in the laning phase and also will continues throughout the entire game. But in the early stages of the laning phase, when you kill an enemy minion, it will guarantee give you at least 37 souls off the start and will scale throughout time in the game. But to know an additional soul pops out, that's the one you have to shoot. When you shoot it, you'll get an additional 37, 38, or whatever time is in your match. This makes it so you get 2 times the souls. Now, besides this shooting the orb that pops out, most of the time you want to prioritize meleeing the minion when it's low on HP, so that you're guaranteed collecting that soul orb that pops out, because once you melee it on low HP, you'll get the initial amount plus the soul orb at the same time. Now, on the flip side, there's also the denying mechanic. If an enemy player kills a friendly minion, a orange soul orb will pop out of that minion, where it's the same for them that if they shoot it, they get that extra souls. But if you yourself shoot it and deny the enemy the soul, you get that 37 or whatever number it is instead. And well, as the title implies, ultimately denying that soul from the enemy player. Now this mechanic will continue throughout the entire game and matters most once it hits the 10-minute marker. Once you hit 10 minutes, that initial souls that you get from killing an enemy minion are no longer a thing. And the only way to get the souls from the minion is shooting the orb or letting it free flow into the air and expiring and just giving you the soul. But again, enemy players can deny it, and this is probably the second best time to deny enemy minion souls, as you're just getting rid of their farm completely. Now not only besides just minions, but there's also souls from the guardians, the walkers, the base guardians, and even the shrines. But the shrine ones don't really pop up. Those are all examples that you can shoot and deny enemy minions. Now the next tip I'm going to be talking about is going to be all surrounding the jungle camps, jungle minions, the neutral enemies, or whatever you want to call them. I also have a video that's popping up top right that tells you in depth and detail about everything you need to know about the jungle camps. So I'm just going to quickly glance over it for this tip. But anyways, the jungle camps are noted as triangles. You will notice them on the minimap as soon as they spawn, and they're divided into 3 tiers. The tier 1 neutral camp icon is a single triangle, a tier 2 or medium level camp is a triangle with a single line underneath, and tier 3 or a hard level camp is a triangle with 2 lines underneath. And well, the times that the camp spawns are as follows. The tier 1 jungle camps, or the easy camps, spawn at 2 minutes with a respawn time of every 4 minutes. That is, of course, if you kill every single tier 1 enemy in that neutral camp. It drops 45 souls a creep, and that number escalates as the game goes on. And there's a total of 6 tier 1 camps all throughout the map. The medium camp, or the triangle with a single line, spawns at the 7-minute marker with a respawn time of 6 minutes. You get 95 souls per minion killed in the camp, and there's a total of 26 of the medium camps all throughout the map. Now for the hard camps, the tier 3s are going to have the triangle with the 2 lines. They also spawn at the same timer that the medium camp spawn, so at 7 minutes, and they have a 8-minute respawn timer. They give 240 souls a creep, which again go up with whatever the time the match is at, and there's a total of 8 of them scattered all throughout the map. Now as it is a tier 3 camp, they're definitely going to be on the harder side, so I recommend using the walls to try to block their line of sight onto you from the other 2 minions that are there. As again, if you're trying to for whatever reason take them on at the 7-minute timer, you're kind of, I guess, insane, because they will do a ton of damage to you. So I'd wait for a while till you start doing those camps. The next thing I want to talk about is ability leveling. A lot of people talk about it, and it's a super important aspect of this game. It essentially tells you how many souls you need to level up, but on the flip side, you can also use it for a ton of information. By knowing how many souls the enemy player has, you can pretty much determine what they have leveled up. So if you're in the early stages of laning, you know whether or not if they have ulti or not, so you can easily get the jump on them. It's pretty obvious that at level 0, you get your first level up. At 400 spirit or 400 souls, whatever you're going to call it, you get your secondary unlock, and you get 1 ability point. To explain the difference, it pretty much goes off what the title is. The ability unlock is how you unlock your first, second, third, and fourth abilities, and the ability point is how you actually level up your ability. Pretty self-explanatory. Now what's interesting is you don't get your third ability until you reach 1.5k souls, which is rather interesting, as you get a second ability point below that at 800. Then lastly, you get your ultimate ability at 3000 souls. Then approximately after every 1.5k souls, you get an ability point. Now every single character, when it comes to the ability points and the ability unlocks, they all require the same exact amount of souls, so there's no one character that's better than the other. The next step I want to talk about is meleeing and parrying. These are 2 essential attacks, defense, whatever you want to call them, but you really need to know how to use them. Melee damage is something a lot of people underrate, or it's something that a lot of people overthink. Melee damage scales directly with your weapon damage or your gun damage, whatever you want to call it, and will honestly can do a ton of damage. You can also use it for movement, closing gaps, making some type of entry, and everything like that. Melees in the early game of the laning phase are super useful and super essential to dealing a whole bunch of damage to enemies, then tying back to one of my first tips, securing enemy minions, and again just dealing a ton of damage. Something to note, one easy counter to melee is parrying. All you have to do is press the default keybind of F on your keyboard and you parry. Do be warned, if you press the parry button, you cannot do any other actions besides parrying. You're kind of just a sitting duck. So you pretty much have to time it correctly, otherwise you'll ultimately end up getting yourself killed. But what the parry does is for a short duration you'll enter a parry stance, and any enemy that melees you during that time, whether it be a heavy or a quick melee, will ultimately get stunned. While they're in that stunned down state, you can easily use it to your advantage and do a heavy melee onto the enemy, just getting a ton of damage onto the player that tried to capitalize on a melee. I will say, if you're playing against a Abrams player in lane, parrying is something you need to know how to do. But like I said previously, you do have to time it right. If not, well, you're ultimately going to end up dying. So do be warned about that. Now I want to cycle back into the jungle. I do want to talk about all the other camps, the mid boss, the soul urn, the power-ups, and even the sinner sacrifice. But the mid boss spawns at 10 minutes and has a respawn time of every 7 minutes. When killing the mid boss, it spawns the rejuvenator item, which gives you for a 3-minute duration a quick respawn that's only usable once. It gives you and your team an increased fire rate bonus and gives friendly minions plus 50 HP. When fighting the mid boss, you can only deal damage inside of the pit. A heavy melee is required to capture the rejuvenating buff, so typically you want to have someone stand in the center of the buff area and go for a correctly timed parry. The next jungle item is called Sinner Sacrifice, spawning at the 10-minute marker and marked on your map by a bluish greenish little square. This is where you exchange your HP for souls by hitting the slots. As you melee the slot, you get soul orbs. I believe it requires 4 heavy melees to actually get all the souls. You get a total of 200 souls, and I also believe this escalates with the amount of time that's in the match, but I could be wrong. It respawns every 5 minutes, and there's a total of 4 of them all throughout the map. I do not endorse gambling, as well gambling kills. Do you get it? Never mind, let's move on. Next is the soul urn. The soul urn is a side objective that spawns at 10 minutes. It then respawns on the every 5th minute, so if you ran and turned in the soul urn at say 13 minutes, the next respawn would be at 15. If you turned in a soul urn at say 19.58 seconds, then a soul urn will still spawn at the 20-minute marker. You will get +1 ability point for the runner, then whatever the number on the soul urn is, that's the amount of souls that will be distributed amongst your team. However, the person that ran the soul urn and turned it in will get 25% bonus souls. Now the last thing I want to quickly highlight is the power-up buffs, or the runes, whatever you want to call them. They spawn at the bridges next to the altars where you pick up the soul urn. They initially spawn at 10 minutes and respawn every 5 minutes. They grant temporary buffs like more ammo, more fire rate, faster casting, things like that. But something that's interesting, if you and your team know the respawn time, all of you can crouch and huddle up onto it and all receive the buff. Something I didn't even know for a while as well. But anyways, those were my quick little tips that will hopefully improve your Deadlock gameplay. Or maybe not. But anyways, if you're new here or find yourself coming back on a regular, do me that favor of hitting that like and subscribe button. But anyways, I hope you have a great day and I'll catch you in the next one.